Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Glad you joined us. I'm excited to introduce our next guest. So please go ahead and say hi and just introduce yourself.
Cool. Thanks, Nick. So I'm Ariel Mahlmann. I'm a person who stutters, obviously. And I'm really excited to be here and chat.
Well, one of the reasons I asked to chat with you is, well, you have a blog and you've done a lot out there where you've put information out into the world about stuttering and about your own experience. Tell us about like what is advocacy and what does that look like in your life?
To me, it's standing up for something that is important to you, whether you're standing up for it because you understand it and you have experience with it, or you know someone who does, or you just really think it's a topic that needs more attention and people need to be educated on it more. All of those things, I think, are really great reasons that people choose to, be more vocal about topics. And I have always been kind of insecure about my stutter. I think a lot of people who stutter can be insecure about their stutter. So I did the complete opposite and went and just posted it all online. The one place where you can never take back what you said or what you wrote. And I really have such a great experience with advocating for myself as a person who stutters and being an advocate for the stuttering community, because I've been able to connect with so many people who have said that it's been so impactful for them to read about someone else who talks about certain topics within stuttering that they relate to a lot. So I used to just hate talking about stuttering. I was never covert, but I hated to talk about my stutter and the fact that I go to speech therapy and all of these different things. But now I can't stop talking about it. And so it's been really, really great. It definitely had its hard moments. I was definitely, scared to put myself out there on the internet. And especially with blogging in particular, I think blogging as an industry as a whole is very saturated. And I feel like, people won't really care what I have to say, especially if I blog about stuttering, because that's not something that is, normally talked about. But the few readers I did get in the beginning and the few positive comments that I got made me feel really good. And I felt like I was doing a good thing by sharing my experience. So other people could, you know, read it and relate to it and maybe try to push themselves out of their comfort zones and be more proud to be a person who stutters.
What is your blog about?
So it's kind of about a mixture of things, but it's primarily about stuttering and my experiences with stuttering and just other common topics. I also blog about fashion, beauty, and makeup and skincare. And sometimes, back in the day, travel when you could go. But my favorite topic to blog about is stuttering, because I feel like I have the most to say about that topic. And I don't feel like, you know, I I feel the most confident when I talk about stuttering. I feel like I know what I'm talking about. I have valuable words to say that I know people, will resonate with. And some of the stuttering topics I blog about are like stuttering and dating, navigating the interview process and starting a new job with the stutter, um, advertising and blocking, and just ways to educate your peers about stuttering in a friendly way, and so much more.
So you talked a little bit about, right, that at first it seemed scary, that step of having a blog, and it sounds like being so honest in
Mm-hmm.
such a public format. What like helped you take that first step? Um,
Hmm. Well, it took a while for me to take the first step, which included like, how do I create a website? How do I make it look good? And all of that stuff. And I need to have more than just one idea ready to go. Um, but I do follow other people who blog, and they don't blog about stuttering. They blog about, fashion and beauty and other things. But there were a few bloggers I came across that did blog about other topics. And I thought, okay, so these topics aren't typically, what draws people to their website. But when people do stumble upon it, it's really interesting. And I think it says a lot about that person. So I thought, if all of these people blog and I like to read their post, I'm sure at least someone outside of like my family would want to read my post. And like I said, it was definitely scary, but I mean, I received a lot more positive feedback than I was expecting. I expected to receive, a couple of like positive comments here and there, and that's it. But I mean, it was scary. And I just said, I've spent all this time doing the back end work. I have to actually publish it, and off it went.
well, so for those of us who aren't as like brave enough to go out and have a blog and write so publicly, how else have you? So in a way, right? You're advocating for people who stutter. You're advocating for yourself. I'm sure at times on that blog, just by talking about it. Um, how else do you advocate for yourself?
Oh, there's like so many ways, small to big to huge. I think like some small things I do are like, follow stuttering organizations on social media, reshare their posts, donate to nonprofits. Like every so often, I donate to the NSA and attend the NSA conference. That's another huge one. Um, I, talk about it with my friends. I tell people that I work with that I stutter. Sometimes I don't say directly I stutter. I say like, "Oh, I have to go to speech therapy," which is, I think it's a more like shy, not as obvious way of saying you have a stutter. I've even gone up to strangers in Washington, D.C. and handed out flyers about the NSA and told them that I was a person who stuttered. And that was very scary, but it was a great experience too. Sharing on social media, like it seems small, but at the same time, if you're someone who uses it a lot and like, you have a lot of people that you kind of know who follow you or that you follow but you aren't that close with them, it's kind of like you're making like a big public announcement, like you're in a room shouting through a megaphone to all of these people. And so, adding something to your social media profile about stuttering can definitely be scary, but there's also so many people that have their own like quirks, and they talk about them, they stand up for them, that I just had to keep reminding myself like this is just a topic that I'm really passionate about, and it's something that I want people to know about me and to know about in general. So that was kind of hard. And like I said, walking up to people on the streets in DC was also really, really hard because I felt so awkward. Um, but the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Yeah, I love it. It makes me think of one of my mentors would often say, feel the fear and do it anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like in a lot of those moments you're feeling that like, oh, if I make this post, if I bring it up with my friends or whatever context it is, right? That might be a scary moment, but the more you do it, the easier it can become.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I really like that you mentioned like talking about stuttering with your friends. I think about when we hear about like when we hear the word advocacy, I don't know, I immediately think of like policy and like marching on Washington and making these big speeches or doing a big public Facebook post or something, right? There's like lots of big flashy ways to advocate, but I think equally as important as you brought up in your experience is talking about stuttering with your friends if that's something that's important to you.
Especially with stuttering being in the media so much because of President-elect Joe Biden, which is incredible. um, and Braden Harris, like it's a lot easier to bring up stuttering as a topic, I think, now than it was because you can just reference current events. Um, and so, something that was so interesting to talk about was when people were talking about politics and they would talk about the actual political issues and which sides they were on, but then they would always kind of bring Joe Biden's stutter into the political discussion and kind of talk about it as in like, oh, like he's not a good candidate, he messes up his words, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
And so every time I overheard that, I would kind of step in and say, like, his stutter doesn't have anything to do with his ability to run public office. That's something completely separate. So that's like, and maybe again, that's also kind of a hard way to advocate because politics is definitely a very tough topic. But you can also just tell people you meet that you stutter, and you can do it in a way where you're introducing it as part of who you are, but you can also do it in a way that corrects them in a sense. So for example, last night I was in the Chick-fil-A drive-through, and they always say, can I have a name for your order?
Mm-hmm.
And I blocked. It took a couple seconds to get out my name, and the attendant didn't say anything. And then I ordered, and that was fine. And at the end, I heard her start to laugh. And I was really frustrated because I thought, like, okay, because I can't say my name and I have trouble saying what I want, that's not an excuse or a good reason at all to laugh at the person.
Mm-hmm.
So I really, really thought about asking to speak to the person, who took my order and just politely say, I heard you laugh on the speaker, whatever it's called there. And I just wanted to let you know that I have a stutter. So the reason I couldn't get out my words was because of my stutter. Please don't laugh at it. I didn't end up saying that because I thought maybe she wasn't laughing at me. Maybe she was laughing at something else. But if you do encounter situations where it's more obvious that you think people are laughing at you or looking at you weirdly because you stutter, you can just say, hey, I have a stutter, or I'm a person who stutters, so please don't laugh or don't, make fun of me for it. And that is a huge way to advocate for yourself too.
Yeah, it's hard when we order food or do something and someone laughs or gives us a face, right?
Mm-hmm.
Acknowledging what happened, and sometimes not. Maybe they're not so much so acknowledging what happened because they don't know what's happening because they're laughing out of, you know, they just don't know what's going on. But yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes they might also know. Any other advice you would give someone who, like, say it's someone who isn't even comfortable talking about stuttering with anyone yet? Like, any ideas on a first step towards one day advocating for themselves in some way? For, like, one day ordering at Chick-fil-A and saying exactly what you were thinking about saying.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would definitely say the first step is finding people who also stutter. Like, there's power in numbers. There's such a strong community of people in the stuttering community, and everyone is so close, everyone is so supportive. I wish I had found out about the stuttering community and organizations like the National Stuttering Association, so I could meet and connect with people and I could see them as role models for my own stuttering journey and how I wanted to be confident about my stutter. And that's something you can do privately. You don't have to tell your friends or your family. You can just research stuttering communities, you can read stuttering blogs, and you can just sort of try to educate yourself on, okay, what are people doing that makes them feel good? What are they doing that's advocating for the stuttering community, but in a way that makes them feel good and not scared and embarrassed? And I think the more you read about these really great success stories, the more it inspires you to want to do the same. And even if you don't, that's okay. Like everyone has their own relationship with their stutter. I think the most important thing is to just be comfortable with it. Something I get asked a lot on Instagram is like, how did you learn to be open about your stutter? And I'm like, whew, it took a village and it took time. But I think so many people think it's either like all or nothing. And so I, always try to tell people when I respond to them, like, what you're doing right now, reaching out to people and talking about stuttering is a huge step if you're someone who's normally really, really shy about it. And like, that's a good thing. Like, you're still advocating for yourself in a way. And, you know, you don't have to be walking up to people on the streets and like, doing something so public or so big. It can be smaller things too. And so I just think it's a really interesting topic to talk about right now. And
Yeah. I feel like advocacy is out there a lot, right? With a lot of stuff going on, like the Black Lives Matter movement and other social movements. And right, I think like even just maybe watching this video for some people might be stepping out of their comfort zone towards
yeah.
advocating for themselves.
Yeah. When the King's speech came out, I was still like, I hated talking about stuttering. I did not want to go see the movie at all. I was like so embarrassed. I cringed every time he stuttered.
Yeah.
And I knew he was acting, but like I felt so physically uncomfortable. And I also felt that way watching myself on like recorded presentations, and whenever I would practice, giving a speech in school, like I hated to hear myself stutter, and it was so hard. And like, if you're someone like that and then you can choose to go and like watch a video where people stutter a lot, like that takes a toll on you too. And I think it's great if people can go and do that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I think like, so the first time I watched the King's speech, my family sat me down and was like, "Oh, there's this movie about stuttering. We got to watch
That's what
it."
my mom said. Yeah.
And like, I was scared, right? Like they were so well intentioned, and I love
Yeah.
that they were trying to connect with me over something that is so me, right? And so involved in my identity and who I am. But it was really hard to watch because it felt like my private shame was now public. And
Yes.
yeah,
Exactly. And it's like like watching someone else go through and struggle in the same way you do, and like exactly what they're going through, and like you don't want anyone else to have to go through that like internal shame process. It it was hard, and to be honest, like I still kind of cringe when I hear and see myself stutter, especially if I have like a big head jerk or something like that. But I'll get used to it over time. I'll just be like, that's me, head jerk and all.
yeah, right. It's hard, right? It's like we want to desensitize to it, so we don't do those things anymore. But it's like the more we don't want to, it's hard, right? The more we don't want to do them, the more we do them. And
Yeah.
it gets complicated.
One last thing I want to say is, again, like, no matter where you are, no matter how you sound, like, it's okay to stutter. It's okay to tell people you stutter. It's okay to accept yourself as a person who stutters. And I think once you can get to that part, it's a lot easier to want to inspire others to do the same. So, wherever you are in your journey, just know that people are supporting you and rooting for you all the way.
Mm. As yeah, as we are, right, for everyone
Hmm.
out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I think I would add that, right, it's okay to stutter, as you said, and it's also okay to stutter and be afraid of stuttering openly, right?
Yeah.
It's okay to feel that fear, and sometimes show it and sometimes not, right? It's all, we're all working towards being more comfortable at some point eventually.
Exactly. Yeah. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to be, so outgoing about it. It's okay to be so scared to not talk about it even out loud with yourself. Like, it's okay to stutter.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of us do.